The air in courtroom 3B hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and desperation. Elias Vance clutched the worn leather brief with knuckles white, the muffled hum of the air conditioning doing little to quell the frantic drumming of his own heart. Across the aisle, Cassandra Thorne, the opposing counsel, exuded an icy confidence that seemed to lower the room's temperature by several degrees. Her designer suit was immaculate, her blonde bob perfectly coiffed, and her smile, when it appeared, was a predatory flash. She was the star of Sterling and Thorne, a legal Goliath, and Elias, a solo practitioner barely keeping his tiny firm afloat, was the gnat she intended to swat. This wasn't just about a legal dispute. It was about everything Elias had left. For 2 years, he'd battled to keep his grandmother's cherished community center, the Haven, from being demolished by Thorne's client, a ruthless property developer named Marcus Thorne, Cassandra's father. The Haven wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the last bastion of hope in a neighborhood ravaged by poverty and neglect, a place where his grandmother, before she passed, had poured her very soul. He remembered her tireless work, her laughter echoing through its halls, the way she made every child feel seen, every elder feel valued. Now, Marcus Thorne wanted to erect a luxury condominium complex in its place, and Cassandra was his sharpest blade. The preliminary hearings had been a brutal dance. Cassandra had masterfully painted the Haven as an outdated, structurally unsound relic, a blight on progress. She'd presented doctored reports, bought-off testimonies, and a cold, irrefutable logic that chipped away at Elias's resolve. He'd countered with passionate appeals, the heartfelt stories of those the Haven served, and the stark reality of what its loss would mean. But passion, he was learning, rarely trumped meticulously crafted lies in a courtroom. Today was the final hearing before the judge's ruling on the injunction that would seal the Haven's fate. Elias had spent sleepless nights, combing through every document, every email, searching for something, anything, that would expose Marcus Thorne's true intentions. He knew, deep in his gut, that Marcus's sudden generosity in offering a pittance for the land was a smokescreen for something far more sinister. But gut feelings weren't evidence. As Judge Albright, a woman known for her strict adherence to procedure and her stern, unyielding demeanor, settled onto the bench, Elias felt a cold dread trickle down his spine. She cleared her throat, her gaze sweeping across the tense courtroom. "Mr. Vance, Ms. Thorne, are we ready to proceed with final arguments?" Cassandra Thorne rose, her voice as smooth as polished marble. "Ready, Your Honor." She launched into her closing statement, a clinical dissection of property values, zoning laws, and the alleged benefits of urban renewal. She spoke of progress, investment, and a vibrant new future for the city, her words echoing like hollow promises in Elias's ears. She concluded with a flourish, a confident smile playing on her lips. "The evidence, Your Honor, clearly shows that the Haven is a liability, not an asset, and its demolition is not only financially sound, but socially beneficial." She looked directly at Elias, her eyes holding a silent, triumphant challenge. Then it was Elias's turn. He stood, his legs feeling heavy, his carefully prepared notes suddenly seeming inadequate. He spoke from the heart, of the countless lives touched by the Haven, of his grandmother's legacy, of the children who had nowhere else to go. He spoke of community, of belonging, of the true meaning of progress. He pleaded for empathy, for understanding, for a different kind of justice. But as he spoke, he saw Judge Albright's expression remain impassive, her pen poised over her notepad. He knew it wasn't enough. It was never enough. "Mr. Vance," Judge Albright interrupted, her voice firm, "while your emotional appeal is noted, this court deals in evidence. Do you have any new, tangible evidence to present that refutes the claims made by the petitioner or provides grounds to deny this injunction?" Her gaze was unblinking, challenging. Elias's throat tightened. He had nothing. He'd turned over every stone, exhausted every lead. He was about to concede, to admit defeat, when his gaze fell upon the brief on the table, where a small, unassuming USB drive sat, forgotten amidst his papers. It was the drive his grandmother had given him weeks before she passed, filled with old photos and seemingly mundane files. "For safekeeping," she'd said, her eyes twinkling with a secret knowledge. He'd never really looked at its contents beyond a quick glance. But as Judge Albright's words hung in the air, a desperate, irrational thought sparked in his mind. He remembered his grandmother's meticulous nature, her quiet wisdom, and a strange sense of conviction washed over him. Could there be something? Anything? He picked up the USB drive, his hand trembling slightly. Cassandra Thorne watched him, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Your Honor," Elias said, his voice finding a surprising surge of strength. I believe I do. I have a recording." A hush fell over the courtroom, thick with anticipation. Cassandra Thorne's amused flicker transformed into a slight frown. A recording? Elias had presented no such evidence in discovery. Judge Albright's eyebrows, previously unmoving, arched in mild surprise. "A recording, Mr. Vance," she repeated, her voice carrying a hint of skepticism. "And what does this recording purport to show?" Elias felt a surge of nervous energy, his palms sweating. It contains a conversation, Your Honor. One I believe is highly relevant to the petitioner's true intentions regarding the Haven." He fumbled with the USB drive, his fingers clumsy as he inserted it into the court's antiquated audio playback system. A technician, looking equally bewildered, adjusted the speakers. Elias shot a quick, silent prayer to his grandmother. "Please, Nana, let there be something." Cassandra Thorne was on her feet instantly. "Objection, Your Honor. This is highly irregular. This alleged evidence was never disclosed during discovery. It's a blatant attempt to introduce last-minute, unverified material to sway the court." Her voice was sharp, but Elias detected a new edge of genuine concern beneath the usual disdain. Judge Albright held up a hand, silencing Cassandra. "Your objection is noted, Miss Thorne. However, given the gravity of this case and the potential impact on the community, I will allow Mr. Vance to present his recording." "Be warned, Mr. Vance," she added, fixing Elias with a stern gaze. "If this is anything less than substantive, or if it proves to be a frivolous delay tactic, there will be severe repercussions." Elias swallowed hard and nodded. "Understood, Your Honor." He pressed play. For a moment, there was only static, then a low hum, followed by the unmistakable clatter of restaurant dishes. Then, a voice, deep and resonant, filled the courtroom. "So, the old hag finally kicked the bucket, did she? Good. That Haven place was a thorn in my side for years." It was Marcus Thorne, Cassandra Thorne's father. A gasp rippled through the gallery. Cassandra herself froze, her perfectly composed face draining of color. She looked like she'd been struck. The recording continued, clear and chilling. "Just make sure your little legal team ties up all the loose ends, Cass. We can't have any sentimental nonsense getting in the way. I want that land cleared by next quarter. The city council bought our community development spiel hook, line, and sinker." Then, another voice, younger, hesitant. "But Dad, the historical designation and the original agreement with Mrs. Vance. It states the land reverts to the community if it ceases to be a nonprofit. We can't just—" "Don't be a fool, Jeremy." Marcus Thorne's voice cut in, laced with contempt. "That old woman was a do-gooder, not a lawyer. Her agreement is worth less than the paper it's written on. We'll claim structural instability, health hazards, whatever. And once it's rubble, who's going to remember some dusty old promise?" A different, more familiar voice entered the recording, cool and professional, yet with a hint of something Elias hadn't heard from Cassandra before, a subtle weariness. "The legal strategy is sound, Dad, but there could be public backlash if we're too aggressive. Perhaps a more diplomatic approach to the buyout? Offering a token sum might mitigate some of the PR damage." It was Cassandra Thorne. Elias stared at her as her own voice filled the room, detailing plans to manipulate public perception, to justify demolition with false pretenses, to exploit legal loopholes. She spoke of managing expectations and minimizing collateral damage, but the collateral damage was the Haven and the lives of those who depended on it. The most damning part came next. Marcus Thorne's booming laugh. "Diplomacy? Cassandra, you're too soft sometimes. Look, I'm not building luxury condos because I care about the city. I'm building them because I bought the land behind the Haven for a song, and the only way to get a clear sight line and maximize my profit is to raise that eyesore. That's the real gold mine, the view." Cassandra Thorne, standing by her table, swayed slightly. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes fixed on the recorder as if it were a venomous snake. The courtroom was silent, except for the tinny voice of Marcus Thorne detailing his true, ruthless plan. Acquire the Haven's land cheaply, demolish it, and combine it with adjacent properties he already owned to create a massive, high-profit luxury development with prime city views, all under the guise of urban revitalization. He even mentioned a specific bribe paid to a minor city council member to fast-track permits. The recording clicked off. The sudden silence was deafening. Judge Albright sat utterly still, her gaze no longer impassive but sharp, dissecting. Her eyes flicked from Elias, who now stood tall, a mixture of exhaustion and grim satisfaction on his face, to Cassandra Thorne. Cassandra, the formidable, unyielding Cassandra. She stood frozen, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before everyone's eyes. Her initial shock had morphed into something akin to horror, and then a profound, gut-wrenching shame. The pride in her posture had vanished, replaced by a defeated slump. Her perfectly coiffed hair seemed to droop. Her designer suit suddenly looked like a heavy shroud. It wasn't just the exposure of her father's corruption that had hit her. It was the chilling realization of her own complicity, the cynical justification she had made to herself, now laid bare for the world to see. Her eyes met Elias's for a fleeting moment, and in them, he saw not anger, but a raw, vulnerable recognition. The mask was gone. The star lawyer was just a woman, caught in the devastating wake of her own family's avarice. Then, without a word, without a glance at her father's representative who sat equally stunned in the gallery, Cassandra Thorne turned, her movements stiff, and walked directly towards Judge Albright's bench. "Your Honor," she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the silence like a knife. I move to withdraw. Effective immediately. I cannot, in good conscience, continue to represent my client." Cassandra Thorne's resignation reverberated through the courtroom, a seismic shock that left everyone stunned. Judge Albright, after a long, assessing silence, simply nodded. "Motion granted, Miss Thorne." She then turned her gaze to Marcus Thorne's remaining legal representative, a younger associate whose face was a mask of utter bewilderment. "Given this development, and the compelling evidence now presented, I am adjourning this hearing. The court will require time to review this new information and consider appropriate action regarding the petitioner's conduct." The gavel fell with a decisive thud, and the courtroom erupted in a low murmur of disbelief and excitement. Elias felt a profound wave of exhaustion wash over him, but beneath it, a nascent sense of triumph bloomed. The Haven was safe, for now. As people slowly dispersed, he saw Cassandra Thorne, a solitary figure, gather her brief, her usual effortless grace replaced by a heavy, almost robotic movement. She avoided all eye contact, particularly with the red-faced associate who was frantically making calls on his phone. Days later, the news broke like a dam. The recording went viral, sparking outrage across the city. Marcus Thorne's insidious scheme was exposed, leading to a swift investigation. The city council member implicated in the bribe was arrested, and Marcus Thorne himself faced a barrage of lawsuits and criminal charges. His empire, built on greed and deceit, began to crumble. Elias, for his part, became an overnight local hero. Donations poured into the Haven, volunteers offered their time, and the community rallied around him. He felt an immense sense of gratitude, not just for the legal victory, but for the validation of his grandmother's unwavering belief in the goodness of people. The Haven, far from being demolished, was now slated for vital repairs and expansion, a true beacon of resilience. One quiet afternoon, weeks after the trial, Elias was at the Haven, overseeing some repairs when a shadow fell across the sunlit doorway. He looked up to see Cassandra Thorne standing there, dressed in simple, unadorned clothes, her hair loose, a far cry from her polished courtroom persona. She looked tired, but different, lighter somehow. "Elias," she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. I needed to see it." She gestured around the bustling community center, where children were laughing, elders were chatting, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafted from the kitchen. It's really something." He simply nodded, letting her take it all in. After a long moment, she turned back to him. "The recording," she began, her gaze meeting his, unblinking. That was my older brother, Jeremy. He left the family firm years ago, couldn't stomach Dad's methods. He must have recorded that conversation and given it to your grandmother. She always said he was the only one in the family with a conscience. A wistful smile touched her lips. She was right, about a lot of things. Cassandra explained that she had long been complicit in her father's morally dubious dealings, convinced that success justified the means. The recording, hearing her own voice rationalize his corruption, had shattered that illusion. It was a mirror held up to her soul, reflecting a person she no longer wanted to be. I spent so long convincing myself I was just a lawyer, doing my job, she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. That the law was about winning, not right or wrong. But hearing Dad admit he only cared about the view, and my own words, strategizing how to lie, it made me sick. She had since joined a nonprofit legal aid organization, dedicating her formidable legal mind to defending the vulnerable, not exploiting them. She looked at Elias, a genuine, humble expression on her face. Thank you, Elias, for playing that recording. You didn't just save the Haven, you saved me too. You helped me find my way back to what's right. Elias saw in her eyes not the calculating lawyer, but a woman genuinely seeking redemption, ready to use her talents for good. He saw his grandmother's quiet wisdom reflected in this unexpected transformation. The Haven had always been a place of second chances, and now, it was extending its embrace to even those who had once sought its destruction. The story of Elias Vance and the Haven became a testament to the power of truth, the enduring spirit of community, and the surprising pathways to redemption. It proved that sometimes, the most profound evidence isn't found in legal statutes, but in the echoes of a hidden conversation, revealing the true heart of a matter and changing lives forever. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and enjoy these other amazing stories.